Hi there, it's Leanne Spencer of Body Shop Performance. Interesting times that we're living in at the moment, and I suspect it's probably at time of recording, which is Friday evening on the 20th. I suspect that things are about to change significantly as well. So very interesting times. We've been pretty quiet in terms of the content we put out on this, but I wanted to just drop in, deliver a video, and talk a bit about how you can protect your well-being. What I think the positives are of this situation as well, and how you can make the most of where we're at. So I'm guessing that most of you will be working from home by now. Kids are off school as of, well, now. I think we're probably going to enter into a lockdown situation in London, which probably won't be as drastic as it sounds in the first few weeks, but we'll see. Either way, you're probably struggling with well-being, struggling with either isolation or getting used to being surrounded by spouses and kids, being away from colleagues. Your well-being might be suffering, you're not feeling great, you've got some fears, some uncertainty, some anxiety about what's going on. So let's try and address some of those things. And a lot of it comes back to the basics of what we've talked about for quite a long time. The first three of the six signals. Six signals is our unique methodology designed to embrace health and well-being, in totality, if you like. So we believe that it's an interconnected health model. The first three of the six signals are sleep, mental health, and energy. The others are body composition, digestion, fitness. But I think the first three are really worth addressing. Now, we've put out a lot of content on sleep. If you go onto the website, bodyshotperformance.com, and in the top right-hand corner, we've got the menu bar. Click on that and you'll see a search bar. And if you type sleep into that, you'll see all the content we've ever produced, whether it's podcasts, blogs or vlogs on sleep. And we've interviewed some really great people on sleep as well. So jump on the website and have a look for that. But here's the thing with sleep. I'm not going to talk about sleep staircase, which I've talked about a lot. I'm not going to talk about it starting with a 7. It needs to be a 7-hour sleep of some sort, because that's what 99% of us need. I'm not going to talk about how to set up a room temperature or any of that stuff, because that's all well documented in our content that you can find on the website. Here's something new. What's going to seriously impact sleep is a feeling or a lack of feeling of safety. So what can you do to try and settle the mind before you get to bed and feel safer, psychologically safer, physically safer, mentally safer? It was all the same thing, really. Now, I think the most powerful thing that you can do is some form of meditation practice to get yourself from that sympathetic, excited, stressed, active mind state, nervous system state, to that parasympathetic, dominant state, which is more composed and rested and calm. And these are nervous system states. So we're talking about adrenaline and cortisol and all these other things that can keep you awake. And what works really well for me is a 10-minute meditation. And I do this at the sort of separation of the day in the evening. So the day is finished. I've eaten, I've taken Cami out for a tinkle walk, I've done all that stuff. Now I'm sitting down to watch something for an hour on TV or talk to Antonia, my wife. And I'll meditate in that gap, because it just provides this nice little separation between work and chilling out. And it helps me as well just to feel more composed and settled and quiet in the mind. I've had nights where I've woken up. In fact, just 2 nights ago, I woke up at 4:30. Antonia did as well, and we're talking about the situation. Now, I'm not a newsy person. I don't pay a lot of attention to this, but I think we need to now. And it got me up at 4:30, so it definitely, stress and cortisol and angst and anxiety definitely impacts sleep. So that's the thing. What can you do to make yourself feel safer? It might be a physical thing. Put a lock on the window if you've always wondered about that, worried about that wobbly window. Or it might be quietening the mind and trying to quieten the reptile part of the mind that's saying, look, be in danger, you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose this, it's all going to go to rat shit. So what can you do to quieten the mind? The second thing I want to talk about is mental health, and it really relates to what I've just talked about. You know, when you feel safe, your mental health is better. Meditation is a wonderful way of managing good mental health. This really needs to be a priority. So think about getting adequate exercise to generate those nice hormones, the dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin, the endorphins. Think about what you can do to quieten and still the mind, so meditation, mindfulness, some sort of yoga practice, something that allows you to take control of your thoughts and emotions as much as you can, and sort of quieten them and put them to bed when you need to. It's also about getting adequate sunlight. So any opportunity you can do, you can get out and get some vitamin D and get some adequate sunlight is going to help with mental health. And of course, the concept of heartfulness, which I've talked about a lot before, but very briefly. Think about what you can do for somebody else. That's one side of heartfulness. Can you go and help someone in the community that needs it, someone who's isolated, whatever age they are? What can you do to try and give back to the community? And I think that's going to be absolutely crucial to our mental well-being. Being able to help somebody else is a very powerful thing, and it makes us feel really good about ourselves. But primarily, it performs a really useful function to someone else as well, and it takes us out of self. So that's one half of well-being. The other I'll come back to in a second when I talk about connection, because it's relevant for that point. And then energy. People, places, things. Who energizes you? Really gravitate towards them at this time. I love the idea of drains and radiators. Who are your radiators? Who are the people that warm you up? Go towards them and spend as much time and effort and energy with them as you possibly can. And the radiators, who are the people that drain you? Avoid them. Right now, you've got no bandwidth for that. Even if they're a relative or a friend, just don't waste your time at the moment in the nicest possible way, because you need all that energy to manage your own stuff and to be useful to others. So connection to people, places, we're slightly restricted now, or potentially going to be restricted, but places that you find restorative, and hopefully that's home, because we're going to be spending a lot of time in those in the next few weeks or months, who knows. And then things. So what things, really light you up? Is it reading? Is it recording podcasts, listening to podcasts? Whatever it is, just get connected with that stuff. Get as much of that into your day as you possibly can, so you feel really energized. So that's energy. Connection is the one I mentioned as well. A few things to stay more connected in a time where we all, in some levels, are deeply disconnected. Reconnect with an old friend. Get in touch with someone from university or from school, or a colleague that you haven't seen for a long time. Reconnect with them. We've got great technology at our disposal. Skype, Zoom, we've got FaceTime, we've got obviously mobile phones, we've got video calls that we can do, WhatsApp. Reach out and be my challenge to you. Reach out to someone you haven't had any contact with and make that contact. Another thing for connection, try something new. It can be really energizing to look at something new. If you've got a bit more time, so you used to do a 45-minute commute, you've got an hour and a half in the day, maybe you pick up that guitar, maybe you knit that jumper, you learn that language, you get that Tinder profile done, whatever it is. Try something new. And that can spark a lot of energy. It can generate nice hormones as well, dopamine, some oxytocin, some serotonin, maybe some endorphins. So that's another thing. And then connection groups, even if they're virtual groups. Let's get some community going. I mean, it's happening. We're getting notes, and I'm getting WhatsApps from people saying, if you need the dog walking, if you're self-isolating, let me know. If any are people who can't get out need any food, let me know. So we're already starting to build new communities, and that takes me to, when I come to the positives, that's one of them. The fact that we're building these amazing new communities. And last point before I get to the positives, how to be more active when you work from home. So here's a few things for you. One is deconvenience your desk. And this applies for the office as well, by the way. So we tend to have our desks, I've got books here, I've got pens there, I've got a cup of tea here, really full, so I don't have to empty that for a while. I've got my microphone, I've got some paper. Everything's within easy reach. Literally, I don't have to get up. I can stay on this stool and access everything I need to. So deconvenience your desk when you're working from home. Obviously you'll need the pen and the paper there perhaps, but your mobile phone's over there, so you've got to get up and reach for it. Every time you get a phone call, you stand up. That's an absolute blanket rule for yourself. Make it so that you've just got the basics in front of you and you have to get up and access other things. So deconvenience your desk. Stand for phone calls or have a standing workstation. So I've got a laptop table over there. If you put laptop table into Amazon, it's this device that I've talked about a lot before. You put it on the table, put your laptop on top, and then you can take it out, slide it out, costs about £25, put your laptop back on the table, sit down for deep work. So that can be really helpful for just, standing is not great, but it's a damn sight better than sitting, particularly for prolonged periods. If you can move around in your garden or even walk around the block, then do so. Take your phone calls. When you make calls, or you're sitting on a conference call and just chipping in every now and again, stick yourself on mute and walk around the block while you're on this conference call. Just get your exercise that way, and fresh oxygenated blood sent around to the body. Neurogenesis, the creation of new brain cells. Excuse me, I'm going to shut the door there. The creation of new brain cells, which is neurogenesis. And that comes from movement as well. It comes from walking. So that's another thing that you can think about doing. Calls in the garden, we've talked about the wobble board. So you can get a wobble board which you can spend lots of money on or not a lot of money on, and you can be standing on that whilst you're working at your desk. Don't get one that's super wobbly or you get nothing done. You'll just be falling from left to right all the time. That's another option for you in terms of just staying a little bit more mobile. So my setup at the office, which I'll be replicating here, is that £25 laptop table and then a wobble board underneath, so I can just sort of gently put my weight from left to right, and keep moving. Another thing we've got, so I've talked about before, is I've got something heavy in the office, so a kettlebell or something like that. So every half an hour you can get up and do 10 kettlebell swings or 10 kettlebell squats or clean and press or something. Alternatively, use your stairs. So every half an hour you go up and down the stairs 5 times, you sit down again. So you don't have to be static and you don't need to have a gym in order to move. You can make a gym of your home. And really, as human beings, we were designed to do that constant low-level movement, not the big spike of movement in the morning when we work out and then sit down all day. So it's just as effective in some cases to every half an hour go up and down the stairs or lift a kettlebell, or lift a sack of spuds or pick your kids up and put them down 5 times. That can be really effective for maintaining good fitness levels. So think about that as well. Anything that gets your heart rate up. So hopefully that's given you a few ideas on what you can do to be active at your desk at home. And finally, I just wanted to talk about the positives, I think, from this situation. Now, I'm not going to get away from the fact that it's going to be absolutely catastrophic for the environment. I think who knows how it's going to hit any of us personally. But I do think we need to rally around each other and be as positive as we can be. I'm all for the biology of belief, which is Bruce Lipton's term, which basically means you can believe yourself into a state of positive well-being or a state of positive health. And I think up to a point, that's absolutely bang on. So here's what I think the positives that have come out or will come out of this situation. I was walking our dog Cammy in the park at about 3 o'clock today, and it was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times fuller than it normally is. There were kids kicking footballs about, riding bikes. There were couples walking along arm in arm with their dogs or their kids or both. And I think one thing that could come from this is we'll get more connected to the outdoors again. People don't want to be inside because they're fearful of a lockdown, which will force them inside. So they're getting out and about more. The parks have been busy all week. So that, I think, is a fantastic thing that could come from this. We'll get more connected to the outside, possibly more connected as a family. And we'll want to make the most of getting out and about and spending more time together. Community, I alluded to earlier. I think we're already seeing sub-communities being created in our roads and streets or areas. That's fantastic, and I really hope that those communities and groups stay even after all of this has moved on. Some people are feeling isolated and been self-isolating for months or years because of mental health conditions or physical health conditions, or just from what's life has thrown at them. Those people now feel less isolated potentially because they aren't the only ones isolating. And now we've created more of an infrastructure for them to get connected again to their local groups. So I'm really hopeful that people will feel less isolated as a result of this, because they'll realise that they're not alone, and actually there are ways that they can connect in ways that suit them. So using technology, if they're fearful of going out of the house or fearful of going into a group or a pub or a club, there's other ways now. That, I think, could be great. I think a lot of us are going to have to get more creative and more entrepreneurial, and that can only be a good thing for the economy when we start to kick into recovery mode. So that will be a very positive thing. One that's very close to my heart is I think we're going to have to start thinking about how much we consume versus what we actually need, because there's going to be potentially a scarcity of resources, probably because of panic buying, but that's another matter. And I think the financial constraints that this will bring as well to all of us on some level or another will encourage us to rethink what we consume, what we spend money on. We'll need to keep spending money to get us out of this hole once in economical terms, but we don't need to spend money on rubbish stuff. We could be spending money on good quality items and maybe thinking more about reducing, reusing, recycling, repairing. So I think that's a huge positive that could come from an environmental perspective. A couple other points. I think in terms of exercise, we've started running some of our personal training sessions via Zoom, which have gone really, really well. So it could be in future that that's an alternative for people. Right now, our personal training session is quite binary. You either meet someone in one of our trainers in a park and do the session, or we get a cancellation every now and again. There is actually a middle ground, which is if you're not quite well enough to stand in a park or make that journey, or you can't get back in time, but you can get home, then we could do the session remotely. So it opens up the possibility of different ways of delivering value to our clients and different ways of delivering our sessions. I think it'll also open up people's eyes to the fact that you don't need a full hour to exercise. We can encourage you and teach you how to do 20-minute sessions, 15-minute bodyweight sessions in your own home. So people will start getting in the habit of exercising in their home, which I think is fantastic, because a lot of people don't think they could do that. They think they need to go out and go to a gym to do that and have an hour to do it as well. So that's a big plus. And lastly, I really do think this is going to change the way that we work. I think we're going to get much more comfortable with Zoom and Skype, much more comfortable talking to camera as I am now and communicating and touching base that way. We won't be coming across town for speculative coffees with potential clients who might want to do something in a year or so's time, but we'll get really comfortable doing qualification meetings and starting to try and build rapport via the internet, via video, via Zoom. Now, I'm a big believer in face-to-face and the power of face-to-face, but we can't do it. We're going to have to find ways of building rapport that don't involve meeting up and shaking hands. So I think that's a massive positive. And for people who are in offices doing long commutes, companies are going to realise that it doesn't have to be that way. They can actually make savings by having people work from home, invest heavily in technology that gets them connected, invest heavily in quarterly kickoffs and annual meetings and big celebrations, but you don't need to drag someone through town every single day of the week. They can claim back an hour and spend that on their well-being, doing whatever they want to do, spending more time with family so they feel less tension about how their work-life balance is become displaced. So I think there'll be huge, in fact I'll do a separate video on how I think the world of work will change as a result of this. This is getting on a bit, so I'm going to wrap up, but I hope that was interesting. Love to hear your feedback. Let us know what you think on any of the points that I've made. Drop me an email to Leanne, Leanne, at bodyshotperformance.com. Connect with us on Facebook if you haven't already at Bodyshot PT on Facebook and LinkedIn, depending on which platform you're watching this on. So stay healthy. Let me know if you've got any questions or other content you'd like to see from us, and all the best for now.